Thank you for listening to the show on Really Big Something Channel. May 11th, 2018.
The Cooner Report is powered by Kelly Financial Services. Cleaning up your financial bull. Get the peace of mind that you deserve at Kelly Financial Services.
105 here on the great WRKO. Okay, coming up later this hour, trust me, you don't want to miss it. Mad Maxine strikes again. Maxine Waters explodes on the House floor and openly says, I resent making America great again. You gotta hear, this one's an all-time classic. You gotta hear it to believe it. But first, my friends, conservative outrage over the liberal media's mistreatment of Melania Trump is now growing and growing and growing. And I don't blame them. And joining us now to discuss liberal feminist hypocrisy on whether it's Melania Trump or Trump's pick to head the CIA, Gina Haspel, is none other than Dr. Grace Vuoto. She's the communications director of the Boston Broadside. She's also a columnist, full disclosure. She's also my better half, the brains in the family. Dr. Grace, welcome back to the Cooner Report.
Thanks a lot, Jeff. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Dr. Grace, I've got to ask you, I read your piece. It's up on the BostonBroadside.com. It's called Melania Trump and the Feminist Hypocrites. What do you make of the way CNN, MSNBC, The New Yorker, The New York Times just viciously went after Melania Trump when she introduced her initiative to stop and try to prevent the epidemic of cyberbullying? What do you make of their treatment of Melania?
Jeff, you know, I was actually really astonished because I thought in some respects these are supposed to be feminists wanting to advance the cause of women. Now, here you had the First Lady, Melania Trump, who delivered a beautiful, elegant presentation. And what is it that she wants to devote her time to in the years that she's First Lady? She wants to help children and teens to choose their words carefully, to be kind to one another, and to stop this nastiness on the internet. That's one of her causes she's going to take on, and she wants to bring awareness regarding the opioid epidemic. Now, I thought, well, who could possibly object to that? I mean, it's like standing up there and saying, I want to help dogs, you know? Okay, you know, you like dogs, go ahead and help dogs, whatever. It's one of those causes, like everybody goes, okay, let her do it, you know? It's completely unobjectionable. In fact, it's noble. It's a very nice thing that she wants to do. So what's the problem? Instead, you have the liberal media going nuts, and they're using an argument. This is what astonished me. Okay, they're going to attack her because she's a member of the Trump family, fine. But the argument that they're using betrays the very principles that they have advanced for decades. They're saying that how could Melania take up the cause of cyberbullying when her husband is notorious for mean tweets? And I was thinking the whole time, excuse me, since when do we tell a woman what she can or cannot do based on what her husband is or isn't doing? This is archaic. We don't talk like that anymore. A woman is supposed to be independent, have her own mind. So this, you know, to add fuel to the fire, Melania Trump she's even said that she told Trump she disagrees with his tweeting. She doesn't like it. She's told him to stop it. So she has publicly dissented from her husband. She has said publicly that she disapproves of it. So she has every right, if this is the mission she wants to devote herself to go ahead and do it. And yet you have these so-called feminists saying, how can she be doing that when the biggest bully on the block is Donald Trump? That's her husband. And she, Melania Trump, has a separate brain, a separate body, a separate soul, a separate personality. I mean, excuse me, is this the 21st century or are we back in the Middle Ages?
Dr. Grace, you're making absolutely brilliant points. And the comment that I think has really now just infuriated conservatives is liberal feminist April Ryan, CNN contributor, went right after Melania Trump, claiming that because she was born in Slovenia, speaks, I guess, with a thick Eastern European accent, even though Melania is an American citizen now, she's a naturalized American, has been for a long time, her inability to call out her husband for the so-called cyberbullying shows that culturally, she's really not just American. Listen to this unbelievable clip, and I want to get your reaction. Roll it, Brittany.
But there are realities. There are a lot of realities that she's dealing with. This is a first lady who is not culturally American, but she is learning the ways. And this is not just an American issue. These are not just American issues. These are international issues.
She's not culturally American? Are you kidding me?
I had the same reaction, Jeff, when it came to Barack Obama's, diverse, cosmopolitan, transnational heritage. This was hailed as a sign of his compassion, a sign of his worldliness, a sign of a new America. When it comes to Melania Trump, her Slovenian background is presented as, well, she doesn't really understand America, so why is she taking on cyberbullying? First of all, that argument doesn't make any sense at all. Now, that woman, April Ryan, actually said there was Melania standing next to this huge bully, Donald Trump, in the White House Rose Garden, and she wants us to believe that she is going to end cyberbullying. And I'm thinking quite the opposite. I'm thinking, look at how strong she is. She's standing next to the most powerful man in the history, and right now, the most powerful man currently, contemporarily in the world, the President of the United States. She's standing there saying, I'm going to take on a cause that even you violate. That's a tremendously strong woman. As a as someone that wants to champion female rights, you got to go, wow. Even if you admit, even if you concede that, as April Ryan said, he's a big bully. Well, she's standing right next to the bully, saying we got to end bullying. I mean, from a feminist point of view, you got to go, wow, that's really impressive. And I got to make this point. When did Hillary Clinton ever publicly dissent from her husband? When? She never did, and yet she's this big, strong feminist icon, and Melania is being called all kinds of things, including like she's childlike, naive, a simpleton, weak. This is a strong woman with her own mind, her own brain, and she is publicly dissenting from the most powerful man in the country. What more pride in female empowerment could you possibly have in that moment in the White House?
You're absolutely brilliant. I mean, you're completely dead on, 1,000% dead on. Dr. Grace, I've got about 3 minutes left. I want to pivot now to Gina Haspel. She was pummeled in her hearings up on the Hill. She's obviously Trump's pick to be the head of the CIA. It looks like there's enough votes to get her approved. We'll see. But I couldn't believe this exchange between Democratic Senator and 2020 Democratic presidential hopeful Senator Kamala Harris going right after Gina Haspel, allegedly on enhanced interrogation and waterboarding. Roll it, Brittany.
So one question I've not heard you answer is, do you believe that the previous interrogation techniques were immoral?
Senator, I believe that CIA officers to whom you referred.
It's a yes or no answer. Do you believe the previous interrogation techniques were immoral? I'm not asking, do you believe they were legal? I'm asking, do you believe they were immoral?
Dr. Grace?
Yeah, oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, I thought you were going to ask the question. Jeff, honestly...
No, I'm serious. I'm looking at this and I'm like, are you kidding me? No, really,
Yeah,
again, are you kidding me?
Are you kidding me? When was the last time you heard a liberal use the word immoral about anything? And now here you have, they say that's judgmental, don't use that word, suck the baby's brains out, but please don't call it immoral. Don't say that. Don't use that word. Now here you have one of the most qualified women in the history of the CIA. She's uber qualified. She was engaged in a program that at the time was legal. And by the way, it's a program that I fully support and I think we should reinstate. But forget that point. She was engaged in it. She executed her duties brilliantly and beautifully. She's a consummate professional. And let's say, okay, you disagree with what she did. But as a fellow female, okay, you're not going to agree with everything that a nominee is going to do for any position. You're not going to agree with every stand that anybody takes. Okay, you disagree with that. forget about it. You can still support her because she's going to break a huge glass ceiling. If she becomes the head of the CIA, this will be the first female to ever lead our intelligence agency. Wow. I mean, I find that very exciting. If you can lead the intelligence agency, I mean, what is it that we can no longer do in this country? Pretty much nothing. So what happened to the sisterhood, Jeff? Where's the sisterhood now for Gina Haspel? It doesn't exist. Suddenly they're throwing out words like immoral. I don't know, am I suddenly in a church, am I hearing a church sermon from a liberal, the word immoral? You gotta be kidding me.
We have been talking with Dr. Grace Voto. She's got a magnificent piece. Go to bostonbroadside.com, bostonbroadside.com, Melania Trump and the feminist hypocrites. Dr. Grace putting liberals in their place. Dr. Grace, great column. Congratulations. And we'll see you next Friday.
My pleasure. Thank you, Jeff.
God bless. 617-266-6868. More with your calls next. 119 here on the great WRKO. 617-266-6868. Huh? Did I marry up or did I marry up? Huh? I thought Dr. Grace just hit the nail right on the head. Now, I will continue to take your calls, I promise. 617-266-6868 is the number. However, you've got to hear this. This is a classic. This is one for the ages. So, Marxist Maxine Waters, Mad Maxine, is on the House floor, and she got into a debate with Pennsylvania Representative Mike Kelly, a Republican, a pro-Trump Republican. And in a nutshell, I don't want to get too much into the weeds, but essentially now, Republicans and some Democrats are now voting to repeal so-called anti-discrimination laws that were passed under the Obama regime against auto dealers. Primarily, they're saying, look, they're ridiculous, they're over the top, they're excessive, they're rigid, they're basically choking the auto industry, dealerships. This is just imposing way too much bureaucratic regulation. And so they're going to roll them back, repeal them. And many, even some Democrats, as I said, even agree, saying it's way too much, way too far, way too extensive and crippling to the auto business. And of course, the Pennsylvania Republican makes the obvious point, Congressman Kelly, look, the auto industry's coming back. The jobs are coming back. Dealerships now, especially if we repeal this particular regulation, are going to start exploding. We are making America great again. The way these debates are done, you always have to direct your comments. You're never supposed to make it personal, right? Let's say a member you're debating. You always direct them to the chair of the committee that's overseeing the debate. Not with Mad Maxine. When it comes to her hatred, her pathological and utter hatred, loathing for President Trump, it is all personal. Listen to her. I mean, explode on the House floor. Roll it, Brittany.
The gentleman, Mr. Kelly, please do not leave, because I want you to know that I am more offended as an African-American woman than you will ever be. And this business about making America great again, it is your president that's dividing this country. And don't talk to me about the fact that we don't understand what happens on the automobile. No, I will not yield. No, I will not yield.
Okay.
Don't tell me that we don't understand. That's the attitude that's been given toward women time and time again.
The gentlelady will suspend. The chair wishes to remind all members that they are to address their remarks to the chair.
I respect the chair, but don't stop me in the middle when you didn't stop him in the middle. And so I shall continue. Don't you dare talk to me like that and think that somehow women don't understand what goes on the floor of automobile dealers.
Minded to direct her remarks to the chair. The gentlelady will continue in order.
I will continue to do that. However, I don't appreciate that you did not interrupt him when he was making those outrageous remarks about him knowing more about discrimination than I know about discrimination. I resent that, and I resent the remark about making America great again. He's down here making a speech for this dishonorable president of the United States of America. Having said that, I reserve the balance of my time, and no, yield? I do not yield not 1 second to you. Not 1 second. Not 1 second to you.
Wee-oo. I mean, really certified. Wee-oo. I mean, this woman is, how do we say, a few cards short of a full deck. Ay, ay, ay. I resent you saying we're going to make America great again. She's practically foaming at the mouth. You can see how they loathe and despise this president and his agenda. And look at her, how they love playing that race card. Oh, how they love to play that victim card. Oh my God. It's like heroin to an addict. Really, it's like, I'm serious. It's like black tar heroin to a heroin addict. Oh, she loves it. I'm a woman. I'm black. I'm African American. Nobody can talk about discrimination. Nobody except me. What? Look at her. I mean, just how dare you? Don't you even mention that middle America is being discriminated against, which, by the way, they are, and they have been. Look, whatever you think of Marxist Maxine, okay? Mad Maxine. Under globalism, and frankly, both parties are to blame. This is both Obama, Bush, Clinton, and Bush 41. We have sold this country down the river with these ridiculous free trade agreements, with all of this outsourcing, with all of this economic globalism, in which entire sectors have been absolutely wiped out. Entire communities have been completely wiped out. And here you have this congressman saying, hey, look, auto dealerships have been strangled for the last 8 years. This crippling regulation, we've got to lift it off the backs of these business owners because their businesses are going under. You want to talk discrimination? Businesses are being discriminated against. Middle Americans are being discriminated against. We've been discriminated against. We're getting killed out there in middle America. And we finally have a president who is an economic nationalist who is going to put the interests of America and Americans first. And look at her. Just look at her. She can't behave with even a modicum of civility. I mean, the reason why she was interrupted and the other congressman wasn't, he was directing his comments to the chair, as you're supposed to. She's staring right at him. In fact, she's even telling him, don't you dare leave the chamber. Excuse me? I made my speech. I made my point. If I want to leave, who the hell are you? What are you now, my mother? What are you, my grandmother? You're going to tell me when I can leave a room and when not? Like, I mean, you want to talk about, honestly, condescending behavior, insulting, arrogant, condescending behavior. This is it. By the way, he's not just a grown man. I don't know what his age is. I just got a picture of Congressman Kelly. He's got to be at least 60, maybe 65, 70. You're talking to a 65-year-old man like he's some 12-year-old child? Play it again, Brittany. Do me a favor. Play it again. Play it again.
The gentleman, Mr. Kelly, please do not leave.
Stop it right there.
I want you
Stop
to
it right
know
there.
that
What? Don't leave? I tell my Ashton or Ava, hey, I'm not done with you yet. Come here. I got it. When I tell you guys to finish your food on your plate, you finish your food on your plate. He's not some 5, 8, 10-year-old kid. That's a grown man. That's a 65-year-old grown man. That's how you treat him? Keep going, Brittany.
Because I want you to know that I am more offended as an African-American woman than you will ever be. And this business about making America great again, it is your president that's dividing this country. And don't talk to me about the fact that we don't understand what happens on the automobile. No, I will not yield. No, I will not yield.
I will not yield. You know, I really wish you just, honestly, really she just, here's the middle finger. Blank you. Oh, blank you. What are we, back in the schoolyard? What are we, back in the 5th grade? Linda in Medford, you're up next. Go ahead, Linda.
Well, I had a good tweet on my page that tickled me about a week ago. Somebody wrote, Darwin didn't see Maxine coming. Bye-bye now. Thank you.
Linda, drop the mic. Paul in Dorchester, you're up next. Go ahead, Paul.
Thanks for taking my call, Jeff.
Go ahead, Paul.
You're not going to say it, Jeff. I'm going to say it. Mad Max and the whole California fornication crew. These are the Democrats that's being elected by California. California is an institution in a country of its own. I mean, let me tell you something, Jeff. Dems take everything personal. You know, they give us the cash for clunkers. They pour money into the auto industry. And then they put added regulations to choke the life out of the economy. That's what they do. You know, it's a bait and switch. Democrats always for higher taxes. Mad Max is one of the quote unquote symbols out of the Black Caucus who has done nothing for the minority community, and now they're coming out. They're becoming unhinged. They're livid. They're going apoplectic, as you say. These people don't have the interest of the economy and America as a whole in heart, because what they're doing is they're stuck on this victim mentality, what Candace Owen kept saying, and then they want to just crucify anybody who think differently from them. Jeff.
Bingo, Paul, bingo. You know what's really driving this meltdown? And they're melting down. Everything they predicted is turning out to be false. They said he was going to be a warmonger. He's not going to make peace maybe with Rocket Man. He said the economy was going to tank. It's now booming. They said the country was going to absolutely be destroyed. In fact, it's never been better. Everything they said about him has turned out to be wrong. And now they're literally breaking down on the House floor. Okay, a lot more to talk about. 617-266-6868. But first, President Trump says he still has confidence in his EPA chief, Scott Pruitt. Evan Heidenrich is in the WRKO newsroom. He has all of those details. Take it away, Evan.
Thank you for listening to the show on Really Big Something Channel.
136 here on the great WRKO. Okay, my friends, I want to ask you a very sincere question. Have you ever debated with a liberal friend, family member, whatever, schoolmate, former schoolmate, whatever, and genuinely asked yourself, is it worth it? And what I mean by that is, are you dealing with almost a quasi-religious fanatic that no matter what the facts you bring to the debate or the discussion, the evidence, the logic, whatever it is, it means absolutely nothing to them? It's almost as if they're part of a cult, a quasi-religious cult. Is liberalism, at its heart, a religious or cult-like movement? Why do I ask? I want you to hear this story and tell me what you think. 617-266-6868. One of the great epicenters of modern-day liberalism in America is, of course, San Francisco, as my good friend Michael Savage calls it, San Francisco. It is a city that is a complete sanctuary city, inviting of all illegal immigrants, completely believes in open borders, rabidly pro-gun control, rabidly anti-Trump, and, of course, radically open to drugs and drug users. Never mind welfare deadbeats, but in particular, drugs and drug users. So much so that San Francisco has a free syringe program, a free needle program, whereby they give out, listen to this, 400,000 free syringes a month. A month. Now, the problem is when you give out that many free needles to drug users, overwhelmingly, of course, heroin users, what do you think is going to happen? Just logically. You're going to have dirty needles everywhere. Everywhere. In fact, it has now become such a problem in San Francisco with littering of dirty needles used by drug addicts that there are now needles covering sidewalks, parks, public areas, streets, subways. It's everywhere. Residents are so disgusted that even the liberals and moonbats in San Francisco are crying out for the local city government to do something. Now, instead of saying, maybe we shouldn't be giving out free needles, because they say you need to give out free needles because if drug addicts use dirty needles, it increases the chance of disease, HIV, etc., etc. But they're saying, no. If we stop giving out free syringes, and then we're just going to have people getting, diseases, HIV, etc. So instead, San Francisco now says it wants to hire, and it will hire, 10 full-time city employees whose sole job is going to be to go around the city through the parks, the subways, the streets, the sidewalk, you name it, and all they will do is pick up needles off the ground. Now, when I first read this story, honestly, I'm thinking, good luck finding somebody doing that job. Because I wouldn't do it. I don't care how much you pay me. I wouldn't do it. What happens? You pick up a needle and you get pricked by it. But if he gets, stabbed or pricked by a needle, God knows what's in that needle, what kind of disease is on that needle. But it's more than just the free needles. If you actually go through San Francisco, if you walk the streets of San Francisco, and the videos now that are coming out, the footage, it is heartbreaking. It's not just now parks, streets, sidewalks, subway stations, everywhere, schools, with just littered with used needles. When you go through the subway stations, hundreds and hundreds of junkies, of drug addicts, are lying on the ground, and you can see them either stoned or literally actually shooting up. You're walking over them. They're lying on the ground with the needle in their arm, or others with needle tracks all over their arms, God knows, stoned, high as a kite. Eyeballs rolling in the back of their head. You walk over them as you go to your office or as you go to the subway. That's how bad the epidemic has become. And on top of all of the drug addicts, all of the dirty needles littering the streets and the parks, you have an army of homeless people. Tents everywhere. Everywhere. Crime has exploded. Drug use has exploded. Public dirtiness has exploded. Homelessness has exploded. Poverty has exploded. And yet, like a religion, like a bunch of fanatics, like a cult, they refuse to change. They want to stay on the same path. And not only stay on the same path, but they are so arrogant, smug, and self-righteous, so convinced of their purity of motives, so convinced of their moral and ideological superiority, that they are actually urging that the whole country and the whole world become like San Francisco. Coming up next, I want to play to you some really good audio about the nature of liberalism. And I want to ask you this. Is debating a liberal now almost besides the point? Is it a big waste of time? That story, your calls, next. 1:48 here on the great WRKO. Okay, my friends. So I want to ask you a very serious question. Is it a waste of time to debate a liberal? I have liberal friends. I have some liberal family members. And I'm going to be very honest with you. It's like talking to a wall. They are impervious to facts, to evidence, to reason, to experience. It's like dealing with a cult fanatic. They have this worldview. They think they're morally superior. It's all based on emotion and outrage, fundamentally. And they think they're superior and anybody else and everybody else is inferior. And it doesn't matter the overwhelming evidence that you present to them. It's like they're impervious to evidence or facts. Now, the reason why I mention this, San Francisco is a disaster. It is a living, walking repudiation of every major liberal social policy. And yet they refuse to change. Furthermore, at the core of liberalism, and Tucker Carlson, I thought, delivered a magnificent monologue recently, made the exact same point, that at the core of liberalism is hypocrisy. They're hypocrites. For example, they claim to be against racism, yet they despise whites and target an entire racial group, i.e. white people, for the sins of a few. They despise whites, and they're now basically, the Democratic Party is essentially an openly racist party. They talk about climate change and the environment, yet Al Gore will go around flying on his private jet plane, doing more for carbon gas emissions and pollution than anybody on the planet. It doesn't matter. Al Gore thinks he's a saint, and the rest of us are deplorables. Eric Schneiderman, the disgraced former attorney general of the state of New York. He thinks he's a great man because he's opposed to sexual harassment. He supports the hashtag #MeToo movement. He's supposedly an arch feminist. It doesn't matter that women have accused him of choking them, beating them, assaulting them, putting them in bondage, or that he was calling his Sri Lankan girlfriend, my quote, brown slave, unquote. Eric Schneiderman thinks he's morally superior and better to all of you. What explains this kind of fundamental, almost pathological hypocrisy, except if you come to this stunning revelation? Liberalism is not a political movement. It's that, but it's something deeper. Liberalism is a religious movement. It's almost like a religion or a quasi-cult. Listen to Tucker Carlson lay it out, I think, beautifully. Roll cut one, Brittany.
Al Gore doesn't believe he's a hypocrite. Eric Schneiderman probably doesn't think he is either. You can't commit sin if your intentions are pure, and liberals believe their intentions are the purest. If that sounds like theology and not public policy, that's because it is theology. Modern liberalism is a religious movement. It's a replacement for the Protestant Christianity that the left works so hard to undermine and destroy. Liberals are speaking the language of faith, albeit a faith without God. This is the main reason that right and left talk past each other. The reason our public debates are so weird and unsatisfying.
I think he's putting his finger on something very profound. Because I've noticed that when I debate liberals, whether it be in public or with my own friends or family, I feel like we're just wasting our time. Like we're going in circles. Like it's true. It's weird and it's unsatisfying. I give you facts, let's say about illegal immigration. You call me a racist, xenophobic, whatever. I'm not compassionate, whatever. I give you facts about Obamacare. And again, I'm not compassionate. I want people to die. I hate children. By the way, the same people who say they're for the children are the same people, for example, who support abortion. But anyway, but let that go. I constantly come to these debates with facts, evidence, logic, and it doesn't get anywhere. They just don't care. And maybe that's the problem. Listen now to Tucker Carlson. maybe the difference between conservatives and liberals is really this. We come to convince, to persuade, to use facts and empirical evidence and logic. They're almost like quasi-religious fanatics. They're there to convert, to shout, and to use nothing more than cheap emotion. Roll it, Brittany.
One side arrives with facts and stats and arguments. The other brags about its decency. One side is trying to convince, the other is trying to convert. You can beat a liberal in an argument, but you can never convince him that you won. He cares much more deeply than you do, and therefore he knows he's right, by definition, and nothing can convince him otherwise. Somewhere tonight, Eric Schneiderman is marinating in his shame, probably unshaven and alone. His career is over, his reputation is destroyed. He faces years of potential legal action. He is a broken man. He is in agony. And yet, on some level, despite all of that, Eric Schneiderman still knows he's a better person than you are.
He's a hero. He's a hero. Now, doesn't that describe to you Obama? That sense of moral superiority? Hillary Clinton? I can run down the whole list. Nancy Pelosi. I mean, just pick it. Elizabeth Warren. What bigger fraud and hypocrite on the planet is there than Elizabeth Warren? She's still morally superior. But like this, almost like a cult, like a religious fanatic. Almost, to me, I think you want to understand fundamentally. I'm not talking about at an ideological level. Liberals hate America, Muslims hate America. That's why there's this fundamental alliance between liberalism and radical Islam. I think on a more profound, subconscious, emotional level, why liberals get along so well with radical Muslims is because deep down, they're both peddling a cult. They're both peddling this sense of religious and moral supremacy and religious and moral superiority. And to me, that explains, you can run down the whole list. That to me explains, it explains Hillary Clinton, it explains Bill Clinton, it explains Barack Obama, it explains Nancy Pelosi, it explains Elizabeth Warren. In other words, here Al Gore, Eric Schneiderman, obviously, take Maxine Waters, liberal after liberal after liberal. You destroy them in argument, or they're sexual predators, or they're rapists, or they're gangsters, or they're crooks, or whatever it may be. They still act like they're morally superior to you. It's like facts. It's like the old communists. My dad would always say this, and my granddad. I go, let me get this straight. They're murdering millions and millions of people and torturing and imprisoning millions and millions more and invading and conquering whole countries and whole peoples. But somehow they're morally superior to us. They act like somehow they have the truth and we don't. And what I'm starting to realize now, in all honesty, is here I am, I'm wasting my breath. I'm pumping out facts, I'm pumping out evidence, I'm thinking I'm going to persuade them, convince them. And it's like talking to a cult fanatic. I might as well be talking to somebody, I don't know, from David Koresh's group. Or whatever, pick your cult. It's just, there's no reasoning with these people. It doesn't matter what you say. And liberalism is their religion, and the Democratic Party is their church. And to me, the New York Times is their Bible. 617-266-6868. Have you ever debated with a liberal, family member, friend, and really have you just concluded they're there to convert? We're there to convince and persuade. And evidence, facts, be damned. John in New Hampshire, thanks for holding and welcome.
More powerful, faith or logic?
Faith.
Faith is more powerful, right?
Yes, faith is much more powerful. It is.
As far as the drugs, they take drugs and everything, I would just let them die. They started it. They must have had a first time in their life that they tried it. What caused them to try it? They knew they wanted to get high and wanted to know how it felt, so they're the ones that did it to themselves. I think it's crazy. I think they shouldn't help them. They're helping them more do what they shouldn't do by giving them stuff.
John, thank you very much for that call. Well, that's what they're doing in San Francisco. I mean, look, I believe in rehabilitation, rehab centers, don't get me wrong. But when you're pumping out, giving out 400,000 free needles, syringes a month, you're helping these people kill themselves. That's what you're doing. You're not helping them. I mean, to me. Frank, you're up next. Thanks for holding. Go ahead, Frank.
Hi, Jeff. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Frank?
A couple of comments, and then we get to the point at hand. Number one, as far as Maxine Waters is concerned, if I was President Trump, I'd get one of my I'd get Paul Ryan, because he's going to be out of the office soon enough anyway. And I'd make it I would create what they call the Maxine Waters Act. And because of her innate ability to prove her stupidity on a daily basis, I would make it every woman, child, man, dog, illegal, whomever it is that votes has to be submitted not to a drug test, but to an IQ test. And that will stop Maxine Waters and that ilk forevermore.
If you pass a law, like you have to have a minimum IQ, the Maxine Waters Act, to be a member of Congress. No matter, doesn't matter. You win the election, that's fine. But before we can swear you in, there's a basic IQ test. You don't pass it, I'm sorry, we have to hold another election and get another candidate. But Frank, 3/4 of the members of Congress, they'd lose their jobs. What would we do, Frank? Coming up next, Lonnie Brennan from the Boston Broadside. Is Charlie Baker in big trouble? That story, so much more, next.
The voice of Boston is you. 680 WRKO Boston, 100.7 WZLX HD2 Boston, an iHeart radio station.